two of the most renowned, effective leaders in our food industry sitting with us on stage right now. They put decades of work, persistently, patiently, without fear, into this subject. And we're here, and you guys are gonna lead this. We have the Honorable John Robbins to my right. And the Honorable Gene Baur to my left. And the floor is literally going to be yours, and they're going to answer all your questions. This is how it's going to work. It's going to be 50 minutes, and that goes by really quickly. I will announce when we have the last 3 questions left. We will line up right there to my right. No more than 2 people in line at a time, please. And you'll ask your question, anything that is what's going on with the food industry, what you think, if you have any diet questions, why it's important to be a vegan, what can we do to make real change and be a part of the solution and not the problem. So with no further ado, each of them will do a quick introduction on what they're doing currently for 1 minute each, and then the floor is yours, okay? Thank you so much.
Yes, well, I should first just want to say it's a great honor to be here with John, who's been a leader in this area forever. When Farm Sanctuary first started in 1986, his book Diet for New America came out and really had a massive impact. And so he continues doing the great work today, so it's great to be here with you. And with Farm Sanctuary, you know, I was just at our celebration for the turkeys, as I mentioned during my talk, where it's November, and a lot of people are talking turkey, usually about eating turkeys. So we try to combat that notion with a different example, and that's why we do these celebrations for the turkey. So this month we just had one up in Orland yesterday. I'm going to be in LA on Saturday. We're doing a celebration for the turkeys at our farm there, and then I'll be at our farm in Watkins Glen, New York, the following weekend, November 16th. So across the country, we're promoting this idea of saving turkeys instead of killing them for the holiday. And there's that film that just came out. It's an animated film with some of the characters. One's narrated by Woody Harrelson, one is Owen Wilson, and one is Amy Poehler. Yeah, it's called Free Birds. And we're actually partnering with them, and they're going to be helping to promote the idea of adopting a turkey. So we're kind of happy about that. But you know, we operate 3 sanctuaries. We encourage people to come visit, and we just encourage citizens to make mindful choices. So a lot of my time is spent now traveling and speaking about these issues, and at our events, but also at other events like this. So just a pleasure to be here. And we also work on legislative stuff. But I really believe that where a lot of the change is ultimately going to happen is through citizens making mindful, healthful choices that are aligned with our own values and interests. And that's where I see the market actually starting to shift a little bit. We're up against some major status quo, battles. People wanted to maintain the status quo, but there are starting to be some shifts. And I think as those grow, they will grow bigger and bigger, and it'll have a snowball effect, I hope and believe. So, so that's where a lot of my time is now spent, just doing general education on these issues.
Hello, is this on? Working okay? Well, I'm delighted to be here with Gene. It's true, in the late 80s, mid-late 80s, Farm Sanctuaries, you started it, and I wrote Diet for New America. We were both on the same crest of the same wave and have been ever since, and it's more than a quarter century ago, and we're still doing it. I'll do it till I take my last breath, and probably after that too, I don't know. But I've lately been, you know what, speaking of turkeys, people refer, I've heard it refer, you probably have heard this, will refer to Thanksgiving as Turkey Day. It grates on me. Because what about Thanksgiving? What about gratitude? What about, isn't that the point of the day? You know, to honor and appreciate the gifts in our lives and the blessings in our lives and how people can be treasures for us. And how did it get to be a thing about killing birds and consuming them? There's something we've really devolved if we've gone from Thanksgiving to Turkey Day, you know. And so I always don't know what to say when people do that, because part of me is just angry, just frustrated as can be, and I always want to check that anger at the door if I can, because I want to relate to the person with positive regard, even if I deplore the action, the unconscious statement. Usually if there's an unconscious statement, there's unconscious actions also. And I also can be as unconscious as anyone, so I try to remember that. And, you know, it's not always easy because my anger and frustration are there too. But we all do this. This is the human predicament. I have been lately, my son and I formed about a year and a half ago the Food Revolution Network, which has grown very rapidly. We have now over 150,000 members. We've put on 3 summits, telesummits. Gene spoke at one of them, and we have had a total of over 150,000 participants at the 3. We just finished one that focused on GMOs. The others have been broader, just about food and consciousness, food and our health, food and the environment, food and the future of life. There has been a joy to work with him. He and I spoke together at a Bonfire Hearts event a couple years ago, down at Asilomar, I think it was. Yeah. And so I'm glad to be back. And particularly with Gene and you all, glad to be here. Eager to find out what's on your mind, what you're thinking about, what's weighing on your heart, where there's confusion or suffering or pain. And I often think that how we work with our suffering is determinate of the kind of people we become and the amount of impact we have on, and the kind of impact we have on life. Sometimes it can buckle us, we can collapse, we can go into bitterness and depression and apathy. But sometimes it deepens us and we go into compassion and commitment and conviction and understand what really matters in life. And I don't know why it is that some people, they get knocked down once and they stay down. Another person, you can knock them down 7 times and they get up 8. But that resilience, that resourcefulness and the ability to come back again and again and again and again to life and to what gives us life and to what we're grateful for is something I hold in very high regard.
But I'm still here, so I figure I looked at it as an experiment. The reason I did it originally was health. I was moving towards vegetarianism, and I went to the San Francisco Veg Society's annual gathering at Golden Gate Park, and you were there. And anyway, I'm rambling. I don't know what I want to say, except that I just.
Yeah, just like in terms of Washington, D.C., right now the Farm Bill is being discussed. And unfortunately, the Farm Bill tends to maintain the status quo, and it tends to continue subsidizing the industrial animal farming business in terms of supporting the growth of cheap corn and soybeans for feed, to cleaning up the messes in the environment that these factory farms create, even giving money to these factory farms to construct manure management systems, that don't work, that you still have problems. So I think that the system in Washington is a real challenge. And I think some of the best things that have happened in Washington are what the Obamas have done in terms of the example they have set, like with Michelle Obama having a White House organic garden. That sets an example. It's a role model that encourages people to eat better and to move and exercise. So a lot of what happens in Washington now, I feel that the symbolism and the example is sometimes stronger than the actual policies. Now, having said that, I do hope that some of the policies can be improved, but it's oftentimes just nibbling around the edges. And, allowing food stamps to be used at farmers markets, for example, that's a step forward. But we're up against some massive industries there who have some very strong desires to maintain the status quo. So we're going to just get little things when it comes to policy. I think we can have much stronger things when it comes to symbols and examples. And at the end of the day, that can influence millions of consumers, which is, I think, where the big change will ultimately happen.
Yeah, when you mentioned Michelle Obama's garden, she planted an organic garden there, and on the White House lawn, and I was so pleased when that happened. But there was real pushback when that happened from the pesticide manufacturers and their trade lobby, and they really put tremendous pressure on Obama and his wife to stop this organic nonsense. Stop implying that we can feed ourselves in the world without using agrochemicals, because that's what they sell, and they have tremendous influence. The meat industry has tremendous influence at the USDA. Does the garden still exist? Yes, it does. It did, but Obama, to appease these guys, appointed one of their key executives of CropLife America, what's the trade lobby of the pesticide companies, to a very key position where his influence has been ugly since. He's playing politics. He's a politician. I don't know how you feel. I had such great hopes for his administration. When he was inaugurated originally in 2009, February or January of 2009, I was so excited. I thought and it's still wonderful in some ways, and I'm so glad we got rid of Bush, but it's not been what I hoped, and it hasn't nearly been what he promised either. And one of the key issues that I'm working on right now with the Farm Bill is antibiotic-resistant bacteria. They are proliferating in our society, and they are undermining the efficacy of antibiotics to conquer bacterial infections. We've come to count on them. They've been the #1 weapon in the medical arsenal against bacterial disease. But if you wanted, for some strange reason, to breed antibiotic-resistant bacteria, you could hardly have developed a more effective way to do that than what we have been doing in factory farms and feedlots, because they use antibiotics not as medicines to cure livestock who are afflicted with bacterial infections. They use antibiotics in every meal the animals eat as growth promotants to keep them alive under the grotesque conditions that they subject them to in these confinement systems. These are disease-producing systems. These animals are extremely stressed, extremely unhealthy, extremely miserable. And they get sick, and the diseases spread very quickly on such close quarters. So they use antibiotics day in, day out. And honestly, if you were trying, you could hardly create a better system more predictably. And it's happened. We now have a tremendous proliferation of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. So the antibiotics that had been effective are ceasing to be. There are no new ones in the pipelines. The pharmaceutical companies do not have other answers. They're very upfront about that. And yet we continue to allow, we're the only fully industrialized nation in the world that allows this antibiotic use in this way So they can do this to animals. And there's just two different conversations going on here. From the meat industry's point of view, it's all about profit, making money. So from their point of view, the use of these drugs enables them to keep the animals under these conditions and enables them to mass produce, and profit from that. From any kind of public health level, you have a different conversation about how you preserve antibiotics and how you protect human health. And the fact that they are undermining the potency of our antibiotics in order to sell us meat products that undermine our cardiovascular health, and produced in a way that undermines our humanity and that has egregious environmental implications. It's like, what's wrong with this picture? A lot. A lot. A lot. And we're trying to get the attention of legislators at the federal level because we think this is an entry point. This is if we can get them to ban the use of antibiotics as growth promotants, what they call subtherapeutic use of antibiotics in factory farms and feedlots, first of all, it might preserve the efficacy of our antibiotics, which is a tremendous thing to do. And secondly, there'll be a domino effect, and it will make the industry start treating the animals better. It will also raise the cost of meat, which they don't want, but I do. Because if it's more expensive, people will buy less, eat less. And it still would not actually reflect the true costs to our health, to the environment, to our future possibilities in this country of this system. It still wouldn't even come close to actually reflecting the true costs.
Hi, my question is, right now I'm in the process of working with our university in Mississippi, and one of the things we're doing is community gardens within that city, and I'm very, very excited and happy about that because the university is actually helping me get the message out to the churches and to the community. And I wonder, do you work any with universities to help you get this powerful message out, and if so, how's it going?
Occasionally I'll speak at universities. I was at Stanford, in fact, spoke at their law school, and then did another talk there just a couple days ago. But in terms of on-the-ground activities, like community gardens, we haven't done as much in that area. We work sometimes with people at universities who are trying to get plant-based foods available in their cafeterias, but that's sort of an internal grassroots effort within the institution to try to get more plant-based foods more widely available. But I think universities can play an enormous role, and I think community gardens are a wonderful example of providing good food, but also empowering communities, empowering people to grow their own food. You know, instead of buying food from this horrible system that makes us sick. And again, like John was saying, all these antibiotics used, the majority of antibiotics used in the US are fed to farm animals. And then, so the pharmaceuticals make a ton of money on that, and then we have heart disease, they make some more money on that. So this is a sick system, and but unfortunately, a lot of the institutions are sort of supported by that. You know, I went to Cornell, and Monsanto was one of their big, they have some universities have buildings, Monsanto buildings. But when I was at Cornell, they were doing the research on bovine growth hormones. So now Cornell is part of sort of the expertise that promotes this bad thing. So the universities are sort of a mixed bag, and there are some aspects, and in the food service departments, there's more acceptance now of the plant-based things. So there's good news there, and there are, some branches within these universities where you have more plant-based agriculture. I was at Michigan State, and they get tons and tons of money as the land-grant university in Michigan that goes into these industrial dairy models and these, chemical-dependent food production systems. And then there was the student-run organic garden that was run largely by English students. And it was beautiful, and artists, and there's like drawings and paintings, and it was just a whole different kind of experience. So even in a place where you have this enormous resource going to a particular industrial model, you have individuals doing great stuff. And I think increasingly as that happens, there'll be more institutional support for that. And that's where I think what you're doing will help to build that as well.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you for what you're doing. Yeah, I appreciate it. Working with universities, I've done a lot of it. It's not easy. They are institutions, and their funding always is very, very strongly affects their policies. I'm a graduate of UC Berkeley, in the University of California chain. There's a variety of campuses. I graduated from the Berkeley campus. The primary agricultural campus in the UC chain is in Davis. And I've spoken at UC Davis a number of times, and the extent to which big ag, industrial ag, controls that department, the Department of Agriculture at UC Davis, is phenomenal. Even in Berkeley, in 1996, Novartis made a $50 million donation to UC Berkeley in order to control certain things. About 3 years ago now, British Petroleum, BP, made a $500 million, $500 million donation, and putting that in quotes. The quotes are on steroids. I mean, these quotes are major quotes, because this donation had so many strings attached, but the number figure is so large. They did give $500 million, but what they got was control over everything, literal control over everything that gets published out of UC Berkeley. They essentially bought the prestige of that campus. It is a trend that we're seeing more and more, where the privatization of formerly public institutions, and then they start, of course, to correspond in their policies and what they advocate to the interests of those controlling entities. It's an uphill battle at that level. But on the other hand, there's this wave of awakening. People are getting fed up with it. They're angry. They're frustrated. They're not resigned not as resigned as much anymore. They really want to see change. And they want to know what's in their food. They want labeling of GMOs. They want to buy organic. They want to have more organic food. Did you ever think about why it is that organic food costs more? One of the reasons is that organic growers, if they're going to get certification, have to pay for that certification. Whereas what we call conventional, foods grown with poisons, do not. As well, we have a tremendous amount at the university level of research done on behalf of agrochemical corporations that then supports and subsidizes, and then the Farm Bill adds tremendous subsidies to industrial agrochemical-based agriculture. And the organic growers do not get any of that support. So I would like to see, for example, one of the things we're proposing is that we create and increase gradually a tax on pesticide use, and that revenue then be used to lower the price of organic foods. So what we do is we start to level the playing field, because right now it's actually slanted in favor of agrochemical agriculture. So I want to start to level it, and then I want to tilt it in the other way. Because it doesn't do us well to poison our food and poison wildlife and poison the soil. It's very short-term thinking. And they're always saying, well, no one's dying, these levels are safe. You know, you can smoke a cigarette, you're not going to fall over and die. Your lungs aren't going to just stop working. But if you do it day in, day out, and you become addicted to it, and it is highly addictive, then you are very, very much more likely to get lung cancer and heart disease. We know this. It's the same thing. It's not that eating a non-organic apple is going to suddenly cause neurotoxicity to your brain, but you eat this food day in, day out, and that's what Americans are doing, and the long-term health implications are severe. And we need to have more long-term thinking instead of just next quarter's profits if we're going to be responsible citizens.
Well,